Welcome to It's a Woman's World, a show that discusses any and all topics under the sun from a woman's point of view. Hosted today by Nadia Jordana, and here's Nadia.
Welcome to the show. I'm Nadia Jordana. Co-hosting with me today, Junita Flowers.
Hi, Nadia.
Junita.
Good to see you.
And Uma Janga.
Hi, Nadia. It's good to be here.
And we have a very special guest, Carolyn Marinen. Hi, Carolyn.
Hi.
And you're going to be talking with us about the community and media and all of the good things that happen along those lines. Tell us a little bit about what you do.
Sure. Well, first of all, I spent 20 years in television news and promotion. So after that, I started at Hennepin County in the communications area. I've been there for 18 years. I wasn't gonna hide that, but it's okay. And it's been a great 18 years. And so I'm the public relations officer. So I do things with publics around communication, but a lot of my job is spent with the media and media relations and working with them on a daily basis. And so I do a lot of proactive things like pitching stories to them, but a lot of it is reactive because they're calling and they want to know information. And sometimes it's simple and sometimes it's pretty complicated, but it's our job to relay that information to them because they are really the bullhorn to the public, if you will, the conduit to telling our story.
So one of the things maybe you could clarify for me, when there's a breaking story with an organization or a department, I've always heard that you have maybe someone from your communications department speak, but there are certain times when you want to have your leader speak because that's sort of the final word. Is that true, or is that sort of just a misconception?
Well, you know what? That's a good question. We really try to be the person who helps facilitate that conversation with media. Most often what I want to do is find the subject matter expert. I mean, I will talk to the media. I always talk to the media. I try to get the information to them. And if they want to do something like speak to someone on the record, if you will, or do an interview on TV, I try to find the person who is most versed in that information, who's the most knowledgeable, because I think that's the most authentic. And sometimes it's an elected official, and sometimes it's the person who's the engineer, who really knows this information inside and out, and that's, again, to me, more authentic.
And I think today also, you know, with the 24-hour media, media kind of gets a bad rep, but they're a very needed part of our community. What do you think, as just regular consumers of all of this information, what can the media do to sort of partner with the community, or how can we be more partners and not sort of they're on this side, we're on this side, and they're on the bad side?
Right. And you know what? I want to for the record say most of my friends in the media are really hoping and wanting to do good stories. They really do. I think sometimes they've been vilified over time about looking for bad stories. Now, don't get me wrong. News is not the norm sometimes. So they're looking for what maybe not working or who's doing something inappropriate, and that's legitimate. They have to be sort of the watchdog.
It is news.
It is news, but I would say it's really up to the community as well to reach out to them, to find them, to have a conversation with them. There's a lot of time to fill. There's a lot of ink, if you will, to be laid on a paper. There's a lot of airtime in radio. They're looking for stories, and so the more you can reach out to them with what's going on, what's important to you, they're willing. They really are. So I think it's a partnership, but I think it really helps to have you find them.
I'm wondering how social media in recent years has changed that landscape.
Oh, sure. You know, that's an interesting observation that we probably all have seen. So new media is really what social media is. It's after the internet, that then comes social media. Before that, you know, traditional media, what we're doing right now, being on TV, that's traditional media, but they really do dovetail, and they are, social media is a great leveraging, powerful tool. So they coincide. I don't think they're disparate. I don't think they work against each other. I think they're tremendously powerful together.
I agree.
But 24/7, really 24/7. And not necessarily is it true or not true. We don't know, because social media is out there and it can be the truth without any validating. Right? So you're shaking your head vigorously. Yes.
Sometimes so many times you get negative news or false ones, which is not even related to the situation or person. So how do they react actually when they get some negative reviews about them like that, or how?
So our organization, if it does, well, let me just say that, to be honest, when when we have some bad news, no one's jumping for joy. If it's factually incorrect, it is my job, it is our job to clarify that and to make it known that this is the correct information. If it's nuanced, if it's not all that, inaccurate, then we just have to suck it up and let it go, I think, because they're doing the best they can under deadlines sometimes, the media, but really it's my job to educate them ahead of time. My job is to help them understand what we do, how we do it, why we do it, before we actually have to have the conversation that's not very good. And if it isn't good, just when we take credit for good stuff, we have to be there for the bad. And you have to be accountable and transparent and honest. Because I think we've all seen when it doesn't work that way and it spirals. It's just human nature. Don't tell the truth what happens to you with your parents.
Right?
You know what happens, right? So it's really about being accountable and being forthright in good times and bad.
And so the media is always looking for stories, but there are people who say, well, nobody will talk about what I'm doing, or I've contacted them. What are some of the steps, whether it's a community member, a small business owner, do they need to be formal and write a press release? Like, what are some things that they can say or do to kind of get the attention, or maybe a second look, maybe not a story yet, but at least some interest?
Right. So my advice there is a news release is quite formal, and newsrooms are inundated with them, and that they do pay attention. But here's what I say. Establish a relationship. Find a reporter, find an editor, go have a cup of coffee. They will do that. Forge a relationship. That's the most powerful thing you can do ahead of time, not when you need a story. So go find who's covering your community, who is warm to, what are they, do a little reconnaissance. What are folks covering in the media? And then find them. A little email, a little phone call, could we sit down? And then if you really have a story, here are the things you need to think about. Who cares? What's the point? Right? I mean, I don't be too harsh, ladies, but that is really, they're deluged all the time. And so think of things like, what is the human interest? What is the wow factor? Why should people care? Are there significant numbers, as in anniversaries or dollars, or why? Just do a little virtual cold water on yourself and say, why would anyone care? Test it out. Test it out with your friends, your colleagues. Do an elevator speech. Be creative and say, and they go, who cares? And then think, okay, well, let me figure out another way. And don't be insulary. Don't think just because you think it's interesting, someone else does. There's a lot of competition. Okay, so make it unique.
So once you get that foot in the door and you've, say, had one story that was used, I would think that, and wouldn't you say it would be a good idea to not drop that relationship, keep that going, touch base once in a while?
Yes, and just so you know, after all these years, I practice what I'm preaching, because I couldn't have this much conviction if I didn't. And you can Google what I'm saying. It's like pretty basic, but it's true. And I think sometimes the simplest things are the hardest to execute, because it takes time and labor and not just this quick thing and be done with it. And you're right. You should keep that door open. Right?
At work too, it's the same thing. A courtesy of saying thank you, or how are you doing? How was your work today? That really changes the way you work at place. That I truly agree with that too.
Thank you. And I'm always mining information from them and saying what's interesting right now. They have different news directors, for instance, that come into, and what are they interested in? I mean, I know what news is, but sometimes there's a reporter who has a real interest or a beat, and I find that niche and we start going, and it really does create more opportunities.
So if you don't find that as interesting, those options, what action do you take?
If I don't find
the selections that they gave you, like, these are the interesting things that which they find it interesting, but for you, it might not be like, is this interesting? No.
Right. And then that's a little harder for me. Then I keep drilling down and asking more questions.
Okay.
And I try to find, sometimes we don't always have a win. And sometimes it's boilerplate boring. Sometimes we kick out things that are just really about the public needing to know. It's not going to knock your socks off.
Still important if they need to know.
And really, again, our job in government is to be so robust in communication that we are providing information to people so that they have access, that they have the information. What do they want to do with it is up to them, but I want you to know that you could be on an advisory board. I want you to participate in government, because when residents are engaged, then it's better for all of us versus, oh, we're doing this inside here. We need trust and accountability, and I think we practice that all the time, but I want people to understand that we do that and we do care about what they think.
And I think at the end of the day, when you think about any industry, any task, job, it is all about relationships. You know, whether it's building that relationship with the media representative or the elected official, it really is. And you know, it's a lot of times it can be frustrating, because when you are the consumer and you take something to your government when you think they work for you, or the media because they're covering your community, people will get angry. Well, why are you not taking my stuff? But at the end of the day,
Definitely.
it all boils down to a relationship. And I see that divide as you start talking about, like, the millennials versus sort of kind of my generation a little bit, because we process information a little bit differently. We access information, like, you know, for millennials, like, that's their norm to have it all the time, and I want it, so I get it, and so relationship, I think, gets lost. What do you think?
I think you're spot on. I can't overstate that. I can't overstate that, and it's really knowing your audience. So if I'm really trying to appeal, for instance, to millennials about something, an issue, I need to understand what is the lure, what's going to snag them, not just the way I think. I have to be a bit of a chameleon. I have to go outside of what I think is important. And I tell people to be wildly curious about everything. Just because I don't necessarily care, or it's not in my realm, I think that's what separates people out, is when they do care about something that isn't necessarily interesting to them or in their purview. And that's what really does separate folks out, I think. And to your point, relationships, I mean, if we say nothing else today about the media, it's about relationships. It's so about that. They're people. They're people. I hate to, you know, this just in, but they're people.
With really good hair.
Yeah, I know. I didn't do so well. I didn't do so well in that department when I was a reporter, but yeah, and they're so, you know what? I'm going to say this out loud. They're nice. They're really nice. They have hard jobs. They have stress on them. They have deadlines that sometimes I've been there. You know, do I go to the bathroom or eat something? Well, it's like that. You know, honestly, I hate to be so, let's get down to business, but, you know, they have some significant pressures, and, you know, it's a business. As newsrooms change, as the traditional media goes into digital media and trying to find more audiences, and all the competition and all the noise, more and more of that is heaped on them. So if they're little, you know, they can be. Well, here's the other thing I'd say. When you call a newsroom cold, it could be intimidating, and here's why. I've been on the receiving end. Don't ever call a TV newsroom at 4 o'clock, ever.
That's the worst time.
Oh, boy. I'm not trying to be a nice person, but you have now tested me, because there's chaos in that newsroom in a controlled fashion. So really learn how to kind of introduce yourself to someone and find them. And if they sound a little terse with you, it's not personal. They're just under deadlines.
They're just busy.
They are busy. They are busy.
What about the changing, reaching the millennials, reaching the younger crowd? Newspapers, that's kind of fading away. They're never going to be gone. But what's the catch there as far as how you figure out what to use to reach what group?
Sure. Well, here's the thing. I was just reading the Wall Street Journal actually has increased a lot of readers, and maybe it's gone a little down, but this a couple of years ago, through the use of social media. So they're cross-promoting. They're trying to figure out what is the equilibrium about trying to catch the people online and bring them to hard copy. What are the hard copy? I like tangible, so I'll always love newspapers.
Exactly,
So
me too.
And I think everything's cyclical. I don't look at, people are consuming more and more media. Social media, traditional media, it's not either or, it's all. And so my question, or my answer, I guess, to your question is, we leverage everything we can to get to multiple audiences. There's not one thing. You know, I'll never forget, I watched during, was the raid on Osama bin Laden, and I watched the Twitter feed, the tweets, and something was ramping and ramping and ramping and ramping up. I thought, oh, what is going on? It kept getting more understandable, and then they announced it. It broke on Reuters or some news agency, and then they talked about a news conference that President Obama was having. And so as a good consumer, I watch, and I tuned in. That's the power of those two things working together to go push me to a live news conference and have all these eyeballs on him. So it's about all. And so I think for us in government, especially in Hennepin County, we value using all of those tools to help people get the information when they want it and how they want it. That's the job of, that's our role, I think. So even we're trying things like Periscope, a new social media, well, pretty new. So we're trying that, and it's fun. It's fun to experiment. Why can't we have some fun and see where we can get people interested?
And people do like the lighthearted interest stories. I mean, sometimes you read the trolls on, you know, social media that says, really, this isn't really news. And I'm thinking, really, then get off.
That's a way to deal with it.
But I mean, you know, because there's social media, I mean, you know, people are hiding behind the screen. But it is to be fun, and, you know, it shouldn't always just be the heavy, oh my gosh. I mean, like, sometimes people are like, I don't even watch the news because it's so sad. So I like how, especially in the morning now on our local news shows, even the national ones, they're kind of bringing in the serious journalism, the old school way, but then a lot of, you know, kind of casual, they're on the couch, or they're just trying to change the atmosphere because they want to make it more accepting to us.
We chance to breathe.
Right. And you know, we want to be more fun. Can we say that in government? I mean, we deal with some very serious things. And the people in Hennepin County that work there, I just want you to know that they're dedicated, they're passionate, they're tremendously talented, and I have so much great material to work with, if you will. But we also can have fun, and one of the places we can do that is on social media. You know, it doesn't mean it's all fun and games, but we can have a little levity. We're human.
Right.
We're not like robots that work in government. I wasn't hatched there. I mean, you know, we have fun, and we do serious hard work that tries to help better this community and the quality of life for residents.
If someone from the public or in a TV show like this one,
a good one, by the way, I'm enjoying myself. Thank you.
Opportunities for volunteering and getting to be able to be part of that in a way like that.
Well, you mean just in general?
Yeah.
Hennepin.us, just go there and plug in volunteers in the big giant search engine, and you will find a myriad of ways. And we have a Citizens Academy that we put on twice a year. And I have to tell you, I'm so heartened because people attend and they're so engaged, and I think, wow, aren't we lucky? And we always ask, would you volunteer? Because we have a variety of areas in which you can, and there's many ways. If you could throw a dart and find ways to volunteer in this community in general, right?
Definitely.
But, and I think that, you know, it sounds a little cliche sometimes, but you always do get back more. And I volunteer quite a bit, and it's usually with mentoring students, the School of Journalism and Communications at the University of Minnesota. And no one has time, right? No one has time. But I just try to say yes, because I find it more impactful that I got something out of it actually, and that maybe I helped someone along.
You feel good about
I
yourself.
do feel good, and it's kind of our jobs, I think, to help the next generation coming up. Right? So I always say yes.
Okay, so tell us one thing behind the scenes that happens in the newsroom that we'd be shocked about.
Oh, wow. Well, there's probably a lot of things I can't tell you, but, you know, I would think that it's you know, oh, wow. Oh, my friends, forgive me. It's a pretty chaotic place, and I've seen things there have been things thrown. For instance, you know, it kind of gets down to the wire, and that's a good question. I'm sort of pedaling here. I'm backpedaling a little bit. I was just laughing, though. What you wouldn't see is me going to a live shot where it's spot news, what we call spot news, and that's just, unfortunately, something that's happening, like an accident, a fire, a murder, and I'm wildly putting makeup on. That's the behind the scenes in the car. Not because I'm vain and I want to look beautiful for a live shot, it's because I don't know what else to do. The photographer is driving at the speeds that are posted. And we're trying to get there because it could be 10 to 5 and we're gonna fly out. There's a live truck hopefully there. We're setting up. Now they have new little cool tools that actually give them live shot ability. And I'm just putting wildly makeup on and looking kind of stupid probably if someone sees me, but that's because I don't have anything else to do and I'm anxious. And so that's a little...
That's a great way to take a break here and end this, because we're going to go to a cooking segment.
Oh, good.
Stay with us
I will.
And join us for that.
Thank you. I sure will.
All right.